Porsche has updated the entire Taycan range, and range is really a big part of that update. These cars now have had battery improvements and range improvements. For example, this Taycan Turbo will now do 630 kilometers on a single charge, and that's in WLTP combined cycle. But of course, it's not just about range. The charging of these cars has also seen a pretty significant step forward. You can now utilize up to 350 kilowatt charging, and the overall time going from 10 to 80% has come down by several minutes. Now, that might not seem like a lot, but if you're always using your fast chargers and you're in a hurry, well, that can make all the difference. Now, there's a couple of other design features. The whole design hasn't changed a great deal, but there are some improvements. For example, new aero optimized wheels now help add more range. The wheels alone can add up to 40 kilometers of range. That's how much of a difference this can make with a car like the Porsche Taycan. There's also new headlight options, the new LED matrix options. Previously, they had 84 LED elements. These new ones have 32,000 LED elements. Phenomenal bit of technology. They project more than 600 meters down the road. They still have that usual Porsche look to them, but it's just been modernized that little bit more. One other new feature is that the Porsche badge on turbo models now gets this distinctive grey turbonite color. There's a couple of other minor design changes around the back. Obviously, they still have the badge on the back determining which one this is, a turbo in this case, but you also now have an illuminated Porsche logo just below that full-length light bar. Now, some people might find that a little bit cheesy, but other people will absolutely love that. It is still quite a practical car as well. There's a decent amount of boot space in here as well, so if you do need to get away for a longer trip, you've got plenty of space in there too. Another neat feature of the air suspension is that when you open the door, the car automatically rises up to make it easier to get in. Now, inside, the overall design hasn't changed a great deal, but there are some little improvements to the infotainment system and also to the display that you have. You still have this gorgeous curved instrument display in front of you, and as part of the new updates to the charging system, it now gives you a little bit more detail in terms of how much charge you're going to have, what's the expected charging rate, all those kind of things. The steering wheel is still a lovely size. It's almost perfectly judged for a car like this. There's no paddles on this particular turbo version. We do have a rotary dial here for the drive modes, and that also includes the push to pass function. So when you press that button, it gives you a little boost in power. The overall layout though is quite nice. You've still got the vents here just above this central display. This is what you use to control all your sort of climate control, everything to do with that. You've got a pair of cup holders. You've got some more storage underneath here, including USB-C ports and a 12-volt power socket. There's a nice medium size by today's standards touchscreen display here, which has all of Porsche's infotainment system, but you can also run Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. But the big difference with the Apple CarPlay now is that it can actually control much more functions. So while you're within Apple CarPlay, you can now do additional things that you couldn't do before, like controlling the ventilation and other car features. Passengers now can also avail of a additional screen directly in front of them, and they can do various things like controlling the mapping, infotainment, all that kind of stuff. They can even stream video on it, although Porsche is being quite clever and it's fitted with a privacy film on it so that the driver in my position cannot see what's on that screen when any video content is playing, so it's not going to be a distraction. You still have a large panoramic glass roof, and that's really nice inside as well, and you can open and close that according to how your preference is. And of course, you've got the clock up on the dash as well. But the overall fit and finish in here is top rate. This is what Porsche is known for, and this is one of the reasons why you might want to buy a Porsche Taycan. Let's have a look in the back. Now, in the back, there's actually a pretty decent amount of room, although you might not be the person sitting here if you're buying the Porsche Taycan. For adults, it is very spacious. Okay, I'm about average height and I've got a couple of inches of headroom still to spare. I've got a nice bit of footroom thanks to the way the battery layout is done in this car. Porsche calls this the foot garage, in case you're wondering. And The sports seats are designed in a way that I still have actually very good amounts of legroom. For reference, that driving seat is set up from my driving position, so I'm effectively sitting behind myself. But it's pretty comfy. I've got handles here, I've got another handle on the door, there's enough room for a drinks bottle in here in the door bin. There's nothing here in the middle seat, although you do have some pop down armrest with a couple of cup holders, and I have a touchscreen display here as well for the climate settings back here. But overall, this is pretty comfy. The Taycan was already a very capable EV. In fact, it really is one of the most desirable electric saloons on the market. But now the changes that Porsche has made, well, it's just refining the breed even further. Performance is never in question when it comes to Porsche's electric vehicles. This turbo has 707 horsepower, and still the range has improved. Despite all that performance, it has a WLTP range combined of 630 kilometers, which really is excellent. And even when you do take that WLTP figure and convert it more so into the real world, even if you lost another 100 kilometers of range off that between cold mornings, etc., it still is an awful lot of range for such a vehicle. Porsche has been fastidious about trying to chase efficiency gains with this updated generation of Taycan, and it does work. It certainly has improved the overall driving range figures, but perhaps more importantly, and in terms of future-proofing the car for any prospective buyers, it's also made significant improvements to the charging speeds. And let's face it, these days charging speeds are every bit as important as overall performance. But when it comes to overall performance, well, this thing, it's still an absolute rocket ship. Now, of course, there aren't many places where you can really exploit all that power, but if you do need to do it, even in short bursts, there's a push to pass button here, which gives you a 10-second boost in power. It counts down. It very much makes it feel a little bit like you've got a proper race car, like a DRS button or things like that. So you just hit the button and instantly you get a very noticeable increase in overall performance. But what's also changed with the Taycan is the amount of energy that it can recuperate when you do have to slow the car down. It's now up to 400 kilowatts, which is excellent, because that means all that energy, rather than just being wasted, is now going back into the battery and doing so at a much faster rate. And in everyday driving, all of that kind of thing really counts. What's more impressive than that outright performance is the air suspension, which has been updated in this generation of Taycan, and it is exceptionally good at covering a whole spectrum of different road conditions. When you come along those kind of rough surfaces, and occasionally there's a sort of bit of the road that you're going to wince at, almost anticipating a pretty horrible bump, the Porsche just soaks it up as if it's not there. Now, it's not quite a magic carpet ride, but it does do a really, really solid job of covering off a whole load of bases. Often with air suspension, it can be very good in certain circumstances, but then high frequency bumps, things like expansion joints, really kind of can bang through a cabin. But not so with this. It does a first-rate job of soaking up everything that's thrown at it. Now, there is a little bit of road noise coming through, but once you get onto some smoother surfaces, most of that goes away. Obviously, you've got different drive modes then as well. You've got the Sport mode, and that adds a little bit more sound. Sport Plus gives you that really futuristic sound, and this thing just cruises along effortlessly. And having that extra bit of range means that long distance drives are the sort of thing that you might want to do in this car. You know, if you do have a lot of distances to cover, especially now that it can really make the most out of those fast chargers, or wherever you find them dotted along the motorway, this is a car that is really almost peerless in what it can do. It is a car that does kind of pretty much everything. It's great to drive around town, it's nice and planted on the motorways, and yet it has the sort of performance that will make you wonder why you actually want a dedicated sports car. This is a Swiss Army knife of electric vehicles. It does everything, and it does everything really well. Kind of annoyingly well, actually. How it just can manage covering off so many different aspects. It's got everything, and that's not even getting into the fact of just how nice this is to be in. You know, the seats are really comfy, and it's just, you know, the infotainment system works. It's just got all the right sort of things, and it just makes light work of any sort of journey. And sure, yes, there are even more powerful versions of this available, but there's also less powerful versions of this car. And to be honest, you would not feel shortchanged having a less powerful version of this car. It's still so impressive at what it does. It just soaks everything up, does everything extraordinarily well, and it has performance that's frankly more than you will ever need. So that's our first drive review of this updated Porsche Taycan Turbo. It is almost a peerless car in terms of its performance, quality and overall package. If you want to know more about the car, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below, and it's a great resource for finding your next new car. But we'd love to know what you think about it as well, so do get involved in the comments below and tell us what you think. And as ever, please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.